Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. It was midnight and I was unnecessarily washing already clean dishes in the kitchen. It wasn't that I was obsessed with cleanliness. I was just too afraid to go back to the bedroom. My husband was waiting for me there and I was dreading going to him. But now his voice had started getting louder. He was yelling, calling out to me, demanding I come inside. I knew I would have to go eventually. I was hoping he'd get tired of waiting and fall asleep, but that didn't happen. He was awake, waiting for me. It had only been a year since our marriage, and I already felt like I was serving a sentence. I quickly wiped my hands and entered the room. As soon as he saw me, he got up and locked the door. Even though there was no one else in the house except the two of us, he always made sure to lock the door. I knew the nightmare was about to begin. He shoved me onto the bed and began doing things to me that filled me with fear. I resisted as much as I could, but it was useless. Eventually, he took my own scarf and tied my hands to the headboard. Then he tied my feet. I was now completely at his mercy. He could do whatever he wanted to me. He turned off the light and he came closer again. I started screaming. What he was doing was unbearable. He placed his hand over my mouth, then grabbed tape from the bedside drawer and sealed my mouth so I couldn't scream anymore. That's how he silenced my screams. I lay there completely helpless. The night kept dragging on, and I continued to suffer his cruelty and torment. He leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Didn't you challenge my strength and manhood? Why are you screaming now? Can't take it anymore." What answer could I give to those questions? He had already sealed my mouth. Tears flowed from my eyes. I couldn't do anything, neither protect myself nor speak a word. After unleashing his brutality on me, he untied my hands and feet and removed the tape from my mouth. I lay there, drained, powerless. I eventually fell asleep right there on the bed. As soon as the morning light streamed through the window, my husband woke me up. I jolted awake, and instantly I knew. The misery was about to begin again. Before I could ask or say anything, he attacked me once more. I had no strength left. I hadn't known that such a small thing I had said would have such horrific consequences. He was once again ready to claim his marital rights. And this didn't happen just once. It happened 5 times a day. I endured his cruelty 5 times a day. When I told him I have a lot of housework today, I need to cook and clean, he said, "You can do all that later. My needs come first." And weren't you the one going around announcing to the world that your husband is weak, that he doesn't fulfill your marital rights? Now that you're getting what you wanted, you still have a problem. When you weren't getting it, you complained. And now when you are, you're still unhappy. I don't understand what you women even want. I was left speechless. My only mistake was that I had casually mentioned to a friend that my husband was weak. And even then I hadn't meant it that way. Not in the way he thought, but somehow my friend twisted the whole thing and told her husband in an exaggerated, spicy version. And when her husband told mine, my husband completely lost control. Without even confirming anything, he began to unleash horrific abuse on me. I was furious at my friend. I had shared something private with her, and it wasn't even a big secret, just a casual remark. But I didn't know whether she misunderstood it on her own, or if she deliberately did this to me, wanting to destroy my relationship with my husband. Maybe she wasn't happy with her own marriage, and when she saw me content with mine, she couldn't tolerate it. She must have grown jealous, and out of that jealousy, she did all this to me. I was a simple girl. I had no experience with people, no idea about their tricks or schemes. I had made one offhand comment, and now it felt like I was being punished for it, like it was a sin. Now, day and night, I burned in this fire. My husband never gave me a chance to explain, never tried to verify the truth. He just assumed things, believed the exaggerated version of the story, and made my life a living hell. Once or twice, maybe I could have endured it, but my health was deteriorating day by day, and this was not just happening once. My husband would force himself on me 5 times a day. Because of this, I couldn't manage any housework, and if any guest happened to visit, I couldn't even speak to them. Everyone thought I was sick, but how could I tell them what I was really going through? There were marks all over my body. If someone came to the house, I would hide the bruises and injuries on my neck, face, and arms with my scarf. My husband tore into me like a wild animal. This happened about a month ago when my friend came over to my house. In the middle of our conversation, she said, "Your 1-year anniversary is coming up, but there's still no baby. Haven't you considered getting medical treatment? These days, it's really hard for couples to conceive. You shouldn't waste time. It's better if you start treatment right away." What she said made sense. I did want children. It had been a year since our wedding, and in our society, people start questioning a woman within the first month of marriage. So any good news yet? Luckily, I didn't have in-laws, so I wasn't bombarded with these questions like most women, but I did have my circle of friends, and they had now started asking. Their questions made me anxious. I wanted children too. Had my mother-in-law been alive, she would have likely made my life miserable by now. In our culture, even a year feels like a lifetime to a mother-in-law or sister-in-law, and they quickly declare a woman barren without even knowing the full picture. But my husband was alone in this world. His parents had passed away, and he had no siblings. So I was spared that torment. Still, the desire for children lives in every woman's heart, and I was no different. I told my friend, yes, I do want children, but I'm also afraid of starting treatment. You see, my husband comes home from work exhausted, and when I mention going anywhere, he refuses outright. He especially hates hospital visits. A few days ago, he was feeling unwell, and I offered to take him to a doctor. He replied, I hate hospitals and doctors. I'll just take some medicine at home. I added, I don't think he'll agree to any medical treatment easily, but I'll try talking to him. Then my friend asked, is your husband weak? And I said, yes. Poor guy is a little weak. He comes home from work, tired, and then just falls asleep. And that one small comment of mine, my friend latched onto it. I was a simple girl, and I spoke in plain, innocent words. I had no idea how she would interpret what I said, or how bizarrely she would go and tell it to her husband right after. My husband suddenly came to me in a rage and said, what are you telling everyone about me? That I'm weak? That we don't have a child because something is wrong with me? That I'm infertile? Hearing all these accusations, I was stunned. I hadn't said anything like that to anyone. So why was he saying all this? Then he continued, you told your friend that your husband is weak, and that's why you don't have a baby yet. She told her husband, and he told me. I didn't know you talked about me behind my back like this to people. His words made me feel like the sky had come crashing down on me. What kind of meaning had my friend taken from my simple statement? And then her husband twisted it even further before passing it on to mine. Life had been going smoothly before this. I don't know whose evil eye ruined it all. All I had meant was that my husband comes home from work tired, feels weak from overworking, and just wants to rest. He doesn't feel like going out after that. But my friend gave those words a completely different spin before telling her husband. And now my life had become unbearable. For many days, my husband stopped speaking to me. He even stopped eating meals at home. I was deeply worried about what would happen next. One day I noticed that my husband had brought home some strange kind of syrup and odd-looking medicines. I asked him what they were for, but he didn't answer me. He just kept taking those medicines regularly, and soon after, I don't know where he got such strength from, but my life turned into a complete nightmare. I was a fragile girl myself. I couldn't endure what started happening. I wanted to contact my friend, but my husband had even taken away my phone. I was extremely disturbed. I wanted to ask her what I had ever said that she twisted into such a disaster. After many days, I finally managed to get hold of my phone. I called my friend and said, what did I say to you that you misunderstood so badly? Why did you pass on such twisted words to my husband? I never meant it like that. All I said was that he comes home tired and feels weak, and you turned that into something entirely different. Now my husband has made my life a living hell. I quickly hung up the phone after saying this. But shortly afterward, my husband stormed into the room in a fury. He yelled, what did you just tell your friend? That I've made your life hell? Now I'll show you what real hell looks like. The moment you get your hands on a phone, you start humiliating me again in front of others? He kept shouting at me, dragging me back into the room again. And once again, he began doing all those things that an ignorant man considers the definition of manhood. Thinking masculinity only means forcing power over a woman. But a real man is the one who doesn't let tears come into a woman's eyes, who never causes her pain. That day, I finally understood. Never be friends with a woman whose husband is your husband's friend. Otherwise, things can spiral out of control. I kept thinking, if my friend weren't the wife of my husband's friend, maybe it would have never gone this far. But it was my husband himself who had said that I should befriend his friend's wife, that it would help strengthen ties between the two families through mutual visits and closeness. And keeping his wish in mind, I became friends with his friend's wife. We frequently visited each other's homes. Sometimes they came over. Sometimes we went to theirs. But today, I deeply regretted that decision. I realized just how dangerous this kind of friendship can be. A woman should never befriend someone who can easily carry her words to her husband. Now I had made up my mind there was no point talking to that friend anymore, because whatever I would say to her, she would tell her husband, and then he would pass it on to my husband. And my life would become even more unbearable. I don't know what people get out of carrying such trivial matters to others. What disturbed me even more was, if I was speaking to her about her own husband, why did she feel the need to tell him? This confused me and stressed me out even more. My husband had already made my life a living hell, but this betrayal, these complications, were weighing heavily on my heart and mind. Day by day, I was getting weaker. In the early days of our marriage, my husband truly loved me. He treated me with great respect. I felt like I was living in a fairy tale. There was no mother-in-law, no father-in-law, no interfering sister-in-laws. It was just me and my husband living a happy life together. But ever since this so-called weakness issue came up between us, my life completely turned upside down. My husband began to hate me. He insulted me over the smallest things. And now, if I said anything wrong or even slightly upsetting, he had even started raising his hand against me. I just couldn't understand what had happened to him. Why was he blowing such a small thing so completely out of proportion? But I also had a strong feeling that whoever told him all this did it intentionally in a very twisted way. One day he was sitting after dinner when I quietly went and sat beside him. I gently held his hand and said softly, "I know you're deeply upset with me, and I understand it's because of what happened. I promise I will never say anything like that to my friend again. I admit it was my mistake, and I'm truly asking for your forgiveness." I continued, "I'll never speak in such a way again that can be misunderstood, where I mean one thing and someone else understands it differently, and then that wrong version reaches you." I had taken the blame upon myself. I just wanted a little peace in my life. I wanted us, as husband and wife, to live like we used to, with love, harmony, and ease. But he signaled at me to stop talking, and then he said, "My heart has turned completely cold toward you. Because of you, I had to start seeing doctors. I've always hated hospitals and doctors, but because of your taunt, I've been forced to get treatment, to take medicines so that my weakness goes away. Isn't that what you say? That I'm weak, and that's why we don't have a child yet? Fine then, I'll give you a child." And I don't know what came over him in that moment, but suddenly rage took over him. He grabbed me right there, and within seconds, my cries filled the entire house. He had become savage. His behavior, his method, everything was horrifying. I was in deep pain, but he refused to let go. I don't know what he was so angry about, but in mere moments, he left me broken and half dead. My body gave in. I collapsed to one side. My eyes shut completely. I had lost consciousness. I no longer had the strength to endure this barbaric madness. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, I was lying in my bedroom. I had an IV drip in my hand, and my husband was silently sitting beside my bed. I looked at him, but with disgust, I turned my face away. At first, I thought his behavior, his emotional outbursts, were just part of the stress, but now it seemed to be turning into something far worse. Brutal behavior, something I could no longer endure. I had made up my mind. I was leaving this house today. A woman's dignity is everything to her, and my husband was no longer giving me any respect. I sat up slowly, and after a moment of silence, I turned to him and said, "I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore." He immediately lost his temper and yelled, "If you even think about stepping out of this house, I'll break your legs." I tried to remain calm and replied, "If you can't take me to my mother's house, at least drop me off at my friend's place. I just need some time away from this suffocating house." My tone was so defeated and exhausted that suddenly he seemed to feel sorry for me and said, "Fine, get ready. We'll go." I got up, and within moments we were on our way to my friend's house. The door was open when we got there, so we entered without knocking. But what we overheard inside stunned us both. The conversation my friend and her husband were having. My husband couldn't even lift his eyes in shame. The woman who called herself my friend and the man who claimed to be my husband's friend were sitting together and talking about how great things were for them. They were mocking us, talking about how happy they were, living in comfort, boasting about how much money they had. They didn't even care that we were listening, and it felt like they were rubbing it in our faces. Now look at how my husband and I worked things out between these two. They've started hating each other. Just as the girl had said, she never spoke about her husband's masculinity. She only mentioned his physical weakness, how tired he gets after coming home at night. But you took things a whole new level, telling her husband a lie that messed up his mind completely. And those medicines he's taking, he doesn't even realize that he's not going to live much longer, just a few days. I looked at my husband with disbelief, while he too was listening to their conversation with shock. They didn't even know we were standing right behind them, overhearing every word they said. The girl continued, "You did the right thing by taking him to the doctor. As the dosage increases, he's just moving closer to death. Soon enough, when he's in the grave, we'll have full control over his wealth. And that girl is so naive. We can turn her around in just 2 minutes." She added, "Your friend doesn't have anyone to claim his property, so we have nothing to fear from a potential heir showing up." Meanwhile, my husband was in utter shock, listening to his best friend and his wife speak like this. He had always considered this man as a brother. We often visited each other's homes. That's why my husband had suggested I befriend his wife, because he held him in higher regard than his own brothers. My husband was completely devastated, unable to say a word. But before he could, their eyes met us, and it seemed as though the roof had collapsed over their heads. They both were suddenly flustered and panicked. My husband couldn't speak, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. I burst out, telling them exactly what kind of people they were. "Both of you should be ashamed. You used to call my husband a brother, but now you're not worthy of even that title. People like you ruin others' lives." They didn't even care, and for a few bucks, they turned our lives into a living hell. Do you think you've done something good for yourself? You don't realize that the person who digs a pit for others ends up falling into it themselves. One day, mark my words, you'll face the consequences. The trouble you caused in our home, setting my husband on the path to death, will have a terrible end for both of you. After saying all this, I grabbed my husband's hand and took him back home. My husband seemed very sad, completely silent, as though he was lost in thought. I always believed my husband was a good person. Before our marriage, he used to care a lot about us, and after marriage, he gave his best, never leaving any stone unturned. That's why I had fallen in love with him. But ever since his friend's wife came into our lives, everything had gone upside down. I wanted to talk to my husband, but he wasn't in the right state of mind to talk. So I immediately stood up and went to his wardrobe, taking all the medicines out and throwing them in the dustbin. My husband watched me as I did this. I quickly shook him and said, "There's no need for you to sit here feeling sad. You need to report this to the police and have that doctor and your friend arrested. How dare they push you towards death? Once these medicines are tested, everything will come to light." My husband tried to stop me, saying it was pointless and that he never wanted to see that man again. But because I insisted, he went silent and finally filed a police complaint. The police acted swiftly, arresting the doctor and also the friend for slow poisoning. Now those two are no longer part of our lives. My husband and I are finally happy together. He apologized to me and begged for my forgiveness, which I granted immediately because I had spent so much of my life in turmoil. I couldn't bear to live in that misery any longer. A few months later, my womb was blessed and I was about to become a mother. My husband was overjoyed. Meanwhile, that friend of his was behind bars. We started living our lives in peace again. A person should never be naive, and anyone who tries to ruin someone else's life will one day fall into the pit they dug for others. I had forgiven Ramiz and Golrez by the time everything was set right.